Hello and welcome to the GeoGuessr World Cup Final 2022. Now, before we get into the actual gameplay, a couple of explanations about the tournament and how we got here in the first place. It all started, well, the GeoGuessr World Cup is, I'm assuming at this point, an annual tournament considering it has the year in its title, but it has been hosted by, well, this season by Pustetli. I don't remember if he's hosted it since the beginning. I think he might have, but this is the first time I'm taking part, and I wasn't sure initially whether I would take part in the first place because that sign up and everything was at a time where I wasn't really keen on playing a lot of GeoGuessr and practicing maps and stuff like that. It was kind of like at the end of Reddit League, I think. So I was like, I don't know. And then Bush was like, go on, sign up. And I was like, and he was like, sign up. So I signed up. The initial premise of the tournament is that everyone signs up for a specific country. And that country becomes relevant in sort of the playoff stages. But let's take you through the tournament. It all started off with the regional qualification. And that is essentially just getting down. Basically, if like 7 people sign up for a country, we only have one person in the actual tournament. So the regional qualification is for choosing that one person, essentially, out of those however many, like in the case of France here, 14 people, for example, and only one of them can take part in the tournament. I originally, like, as I said, I didn't want to sign up, really, and then Pustetli was like, you know how it was. I think it's changed as well because I remember, I think there was at some point like a final. I might be imagining this, I might be making it up, but I feel like I remember a final between Box and Blinky where it was Guam and Curacao or something like that. And then it kind of went towards, please sign up with the actual country, with your actual nationality. And this season it was kind of a bit you know less strict, and Pushetli was then like, okay, if you want, if it's gonna make you sign up, you can sign up with whatever country you want. And here we are. I signed up with Kyrgyzstan. To be fair to myself, though, I played the Austrian seeds. I would have qualified with Austria as well. I can quickly show you those. Won the first one quite easily, and then wait, which? Okay, that's the right combination. And then the second one at 25k as well, quite quickly. So I would have been in the tournament either way. So the only difference is that I'm not playing for Austria, but for Kyrgyzstan. Anyway, that whole thing happened. I didn't actually do very well in the regional qualification seeds for Kyrgyzstan, but we moved on, and then we had 54 nationalities represented, but we needed to get that down to 32 because we have group stages afterwards. So there were 2 games. Actually, it's not 54. It's 51 from 4 to 54. And we needed to get that down to 32. So 2 seeds on world maps, and also for the seeding, which put me right here in pot 3, which was relevant, as I said, for the for which group you'd end up in. And yeah, few people not making it through that stage. And then came the group, and well, this is already going to show you the standings. Is that better? Not really. Maybe slightly better, actually, because it shows you what was being played in the groups. By the way, all seeds in the whole tournament are 3-minute moving. I should also point that out. So I was in a pretty strong group, not really with like any like major standout tournament favorite players, but a very balanced group, as you can see by the fact that it was one of the only groups alongside Group C where 3 players managed to cross over 100,000 score. And Renata didn't play one of the games, I think week 2, yes, in Jordan. So it could have been all 4. But either way, this, by the way, includes those 3 games as well as these 2 world maps. So the maps for the group stage were Peru, Jordan, and Botswana, which, uh, I mean, Jordan is fine. At that point, I played a lot of Jordan. I played Jordan in Reddit League. I played Jordan in the Coupe de la Ligue. I played Jordan everywhere. So that was fine. I didn't really need to practice that one. Botswana, we've had in Reddit League. Not my favorite country, but it's okay. And Peru against Hugo, I was like, yeah, whatever. I'm not even going to bother practicing because I know I have no chance anyway. My typical luck as well. I don't think there's well, I guess that's not particularly fair because like it's not his home country either. It's just from Chile, so neighboring country. But probably the closest of anyone in the whole tournament when it comes to like a potential home country here in the group stages. So I kind of sacked that game off and knew I'd then have to probably win both Jordan and Botswana to advance, which went pretty well. Pretty decent score in Jordan. I made one slightly. It wasn't even a mistake. It was a really good, not necessarily random guess, but pretty random. I didn't really know where we were. And Botswana went okay. Been annoyed about one round in particular. That cost me pretty much all of the points because at the start of the round, I was like pretty sure, okay, this looks like roughly this area. And then by the end of the round, I'd found no information. That initial assessment of what it looks like completely went out of my head. And I went somewhere completely different. And of course, it was the area where I initially thought it was. But thankfully, it was good enough anyway. And I even ended the group on top, based on total score just ahead of Hugo. Then came the round of 16, and that meant I would be facing Ning, who came second in Group G. And now from the round of 16 onwards, so throughout the knockout stages, games would be played as essentially a best of two, with score being added. And both maps would be both competitors' home maps. So basically a home and an away game. Again, still 3 minutes per map. So I had to play Kyrgyzstan and Thailand here. And I actually did a bit of practice for Thailand. It's probably, except Kyrgyzstan, obviously. But apart from that, it was probably the country I practiced most for, actually. And I didn't even really need to that much, to be honest. I won Kyrgyzstan by about 4,000 points. It wasn't a brilliant performance from me, but still relatively decent. And then I had a fantastic performance in Thailand. I mean, you might be looking at this and be like, 16,000 points, is that, you're calling that fantastic? But you got to remember, this is just Thailand. This is not a world scoring. And these are not handpicked, but handmade maps in a sense. Meaning that Pastetli went, like, he created a seed and then took those 5 locations and put them in its own map, which means the scoring is heavily skewed if the locations are like close together. Meaning that I think on some of those rounds, if you're like 20 kilometers away, which in Thailand is like minuscule, that's like you're right there, you're going to lose 2,000-3,000 points, which is ridiculous. But so I was pretty much within like 30-40 kilometers on all of the rounds. I think I pinpointed 1 or 2, but I was right there for most of them. And 2 of them, I think, were, well, one of them was a completely random guess. Like I had mountains a bit to work with, but apart from that, completely random. And 2 others were pretty good guesses as well. Anyway, Ning kind of gave up after like round 2 in Thailand because he was kind of already mathematically out. Quarterfinals then was against Hugo. Not the best kind of halving system through the knockout stages, considering you definitely going to play a person out of your group if he still made it at that stage in the quarterfinals again. The alternative would have been I would have played the other person in group G, which would have been Mr. Blue. So, actually not Mr. Blue. Mr. Blue lost his game against who? Oh yeah, right. That is it. Yeah, obviously against Hugo. I'm dumb. Forget what I said. And that was Chile and Kyrgyzstan again, obviously. That one obviously being Kyrgyzstan, that one being Chile. And I was a lot more confident, funnily enough, ironically, against Hugo and Chile than I was in Peru, because I myself am just that much better at Chile than at Peru. So that I was relatively confident. Kyrgyzstan, yeah, okay. And yeah, it started off with Kyrgyzstan already 8,000 points ahead. I think Hugo had some like small internet issues, but he said that he's pretty sure that even if he hadn't had those issues, he still would have won. Um, and that game wasn't great, but it was kind of like a game where, I got all the locations that I needed to get, and then there were two locations that were pretty difficult, and I just didn't get either of them, but obviously neither did he, so it's not a massive problem. It could have been if he was closer to me here, and, I didn't do so well in Chile, but I had a pretty standout performance in Chile as well. I was actually pretty proud of that. And yeah, so quite dominant in that one, which put me in the semifinals against Chumi. And that was where I was starting to sweat a bit because Nigeria isn't my favorite country. The one good thing about it is that it is pretty big. So as long as the locations aren't all like in the same place again, like in Thailand, you probably have a pretty lenient scoring, and that's the way it was. And I did practice a bit for this as well. I don't quite remember how much, maybe like 10, 15 games or so, but mostly like just no moving and just trying to get a feel for where's what. Because kind of in Nigeria, mostly you're going to be looking at finding a sign that tells you pretty much exactly which state you're in, if not the city anyway. And you find those relatively frequently, but if you don't, then you're in a spot of bother. But in this case, I don't know why they've done it this way around. This is Kyrgyzstan, this is Nigeria, obviously. And in Nigeria, Shumi did better than me by 1,600 points. But I was pretty happy with that performance as well. There was one round in particular that was sort of west of Lagos, or Lagos, I don't actually know, in a not a suburb, but in a smaller city, just 50 kilometers west of Lagos or so. So I just couldn't find anything there that would put me in the right area. And he didn't find that either. He went more western in Lagos itself. I went just northeastern Lagos, I think. So he gained about 1,000 points there. And the rest was pretty even. I didn't drop much. Had a pretty strong performance in one round. I think that was next to a lake north of Abuja, which I was pretty happy with. And yeah, so I went into Kyrgyzstan like 1,600 points behind. Obviously, like I played all of those seeds, like every single one before my opponents, so I didn't know that, and I played Kyrgyzstan first anyway. But actually, I'm not even sure anymore if I did. Never mind. I think I did though. And then I had a pretty good performance in Kyrgyzstan too. For the first time, actually, in this competition, I think I got over 20k in Kyrgyzstan. Yeah, pretty decent. Dropped 1,800 point or 1,700 points. Most of those, I think it might have dropped like a couple points somewhere else too, but most of those were dropped in a location in sort of southeastern Bishkek, and I just went in a different part of the city because, well, it's Bishkek. But that was pretty much the only place I really dropped a lot of points in, and Shumi dropped quite a few more. He actually got like no points in the last round. He got like 5 or something. He was pretty far off there. But even if he had gotten the 5k in that one, I would have still won by a much smaller margin, but won regardless. So the last round didn't really matter anymore. It just made it a lot more apparent. He had played seriously, though. I think it's not like he gave up when he saw mathematically doesn't have a chance anymore. And yeah, so finals it is. There is a game for third place as well between Toll and Shumi. And I'll be playing Lord Pepsi in the final, who signed up for Montenegro and so far has been doing very well. Through the qualification, he was, where was he? In the same pot as me, actually, in pot 3. Then in the group stages, won 2 games, lost 1, but was in sort of the better half, so got a bonus point there. And 113k total is the third best out of everyone. Then in the round of 16, went past Sheldon with insane scores. Then in the quarterfinals, past Flopes, pretty good as well. The Flopes was a lot closer there. Then in the semifinals, got past Tall. He hasn't gotten less than 24k in Montenegro so far. Um, yeah, I also have to say I don't like saying this, but I'm not quite sure he's legit because he's so far I've seen him in Map Battle League and he was in Division 5 and was okay there, but Map Battle League has that thing where, you kind of play your home countries and that's it. And he's got like 700 games logged in GeoGuessr, and he's pulling out the 25Ks, the 24 9s here en masse, and is basically like one of the best players in the tournament. So, but, you know, it's mandatory to record in the final, so I guess we'll see more of that. Anyway, so that was my stage of getting here, or my path of getting here. So now we will get into the final games. And I won't be doing them live, I've already recorded them. Lord Pepsi hasn't played yet, so I don't know yet whether I won or not. But I will be doing them with post commentary, meaning I'll have them play and I'll be commentating over them. And that should, just because, I don't know actually. I just decided I'd do that. Anyway, it helps me, I suppose, focus better during the games, I guess. Anyway, let's get into the maps. All right, here we go. And we start off with Kyrgyzstan, and immediately, obviously, this is a very typical location based on the landscape. You can combine kind of the general, like, dark, sort of evening feel, very cloudy, as well as the small river that's running alongside the north side of the street to conclude that you are in the pretty much the north of the country on the road from Bishkek to Tokmok that runs pretty much along the Kazakhstan border. And it's not the shortest of roads, so I was pretty much at this point trying to figure out if I can, get a couple of curves. Maybe the river crosses the road somewhere. Maybe there's a side road coming off of it somewhere. And with that, I could potentially help myself trying to find the exact place. Another thing to mention here is that Pashtedli actually handpicked the locations for these maps. So take from that what you will. We'll see what exactly the consequences of that were for this Kyrgyzstan map in a bit. But here I'm checking essentially, okay, I know we're somewhere up here. This looks pretty good. We had a couple of more so like a bit up and down on the road. And here I see, okay, there is a road going off to the south here. That could help. I orientate myself to check the road direction and I see, oh, that looks very peculiar. Very much like what I'm seeing here to the south. So at this point, I'm pretty sure of that. Just I got to place myself on the north side of the road and pretty much in the middle of those two, slightly more to the west. And there we go. First location, pretty easy. Then the second location. Immediately from the start, very obviously somewhere near Narin, you have these kind of very dry climate, mountains both to the south and the north, but the ones to the north are more apparent pretty much alongside the whole Narin city area is what I'm going to say. Like the mountains to the south are pretty much all alongside the whole road there, very, very long distance, whereas the ones to the north are pretty much just alongside the Narin part and like slightly outwards to either direction. The river there to the north as well is very typical of the Narin area there specifically. I say it's a river that runs through Narin. It's not typical for it. It is there. So anyway, at this point, I'm trying to figure out where this is going. The road to the west is a dead end, so that doesn't help me much. And at this point, I actually recognize that this curve specifically is a curve that I had. I think it was a daily challenge from Chicago who had that curve in there somewhere. So I remembered the curve, but I didn't quite remember where it was, unfortunately. I think when I went there, just sort of to the west of Narin. And then I realized, wait a second, if I am to the west of Narin, I should be getting into Narin right now. And this quite clearly does not look like Narin. There is no houses, there is no people here. So probably not quite there. Then I see this, which is a sign with kilometer distances. And pretty much the only, like, I recognize Ortok from somewhere, but here I'm checking if there's anything over there as well. Which is still there's like a small cutoff part of coverage over there, which looks a bit like this, but then I realize, okay, we're probably actually to the east of Narin, not to the west. That makes a lot more sense. And over there you can see Kenish, which is the bottommost, as I point out with my mouse, on that. So that's 10 kilometers to the east, which pretty much coincides exactly with this little curve right here. And now I just need to figure out exactly where I started, which isn't super difficult. It's not quite the same. Like, it looks a bit different on a map than it does on a map, than it does in Street View. So I try my best to somewhat get it on there. And 43 meters means I'll drop 5 points, which isn't great, but also isn't really a problem anyway. Round 3, we immediately start south of Isikul. That's fairly obvious. I've actually had a lot of problems in practice differentiating Isikul to sort of the, I don't remember what it's called, to the west, that lake near Toktogur. And now at this point I've figured out, okay, Pashtetli pretty much put all of his locations somewhere near something that helps you pinpoint. So I went back and checked whether there is a road to the south. And there is. So it also immediately reminded me of the Fairy Tale Canyon area that you can see there as a POI. So that's why I initially placed myself there. And as I check sort of the road direction as well and kind of see like, okay, there is a little bit of an inlet over there, as I again point out on the map. I'm pretty confident that that would be the right turnoff. So I go quickly to check on the east side whether the other turnoff or, side road that's also on the map is there. And it is. So here we are. Get a little pinpointing, wouldn't have mattered, but get a little bit closer. Then round 4, I immediately think that this looks a lot like that area to the south of Tashkamur in Shamal Yasai. Just a general feeling, and it's a rare occasion where the road actually goes kind of towards the northwest, which doesn't actually happen that often in Kyrgyzstan, especially not in this kind of landscape. Because mostly if you've got a road that goes to the north, it's either like through a canyon, like in Karabalta, Susamir area, or north of Narin. All of those roads that go to the northwest potentially are not like this. So I'm going through here, and then I see like, oh, well, that's a lake, so that's quite clearly not where we are, which brings me to Isikul again, and there's not many places where the road goes northwest here, obviously. There's this part, and yeah, when I say northwest, what I mean is not, actually northwest, but I mean north with like a slight tilt towards the west. You've got plenty of roads that go northwest generally. And because this is so unique in a sense, it's pretty easy to find the right place. I then check, does this sign have any useful information? They rarely do in Kyrgyzstan, to be honest. So I'm like, whatever. Let's move on. Just got to check quickly here whether the road direction matches. I actually have a thought there where I'm like, could it be over here in Balikshi? But it's not, is it? Because there's no town there. So I quickly come back to my senses and then check the road direction, whether that matches up with what I'm seeing up here. And it does. And here we got a pretty obvious side road here as well. So I'm like, okay, good. And then I just quickly check to the south whether the turn actually fits. There is something here. It's a little, I don't know if it's a graveyard or something like that. It would work well as one, I think, but it might also just be like an art project or something, which I remember from practice seeing, and of course, location's right, obviously. I remember seeing from practice, it wouldn't have helped me. I wouldn't have known specifically where that is. It doesn't show up as a POI either. You can see here round 5. We start in some road that's called Karabayev, something Karabayev, no idea what. So at this point, we pretty much got Osh or Bishkek. There's a couple other bigger cities like Karakol or Jalalabad that are covered, but that wouldn't really look like this. So at this point, I'm relatively calm. Usually in either of those, you can find information which of the cities you're in relatively quickly. So especially if you are like I am here on not a major road, but a main road. And I see that sign and immediately notice the phone code, which is the first thing I see, which is the phone code for Osh. It does, as I will quickly show, also say Osh right there, which could also help. And it also says Lenina right next to Osh, which is the road, which is one of the main roads going through Osh. And I will find that here. There we go. And now essentially I've got 1.5 minutes to try and find something Karabayev Street somewhere here. And I'm doing something here which is a bit risky, which is that I'm assuming, okay, the sign says Lenina Road. So I'm going to assume that is the road I am on. It's often the case, but it's not guaranteed to be the case. Which means if it's not the road I'm on, then I'm pretty much screwed because I'm not going to find wherever I am. The other problem I have here is that there's this pretty big area sort of right where my pin is at the moment. Did I just move my pin? I might have. If I did, then it's not anymore. Yeah. Where my pin was initially, which is an area that I recognize because I've had locations there frequently and know that it's not this. So we can't be there. We need to be somewhere else. Like the whole where you got the North Cinema POI, that whole area, this one, we just can't be there. So I got to look somewhere else. And at this point, I go back to the start and kind of want to look at what does the road here look like. And I'll notice it's kind of just almost like a grid system here, which is a problem because that's not really something that exists next to this road. But at this point, with 7 seconds to go, it's already kind of too late anyway to go off of that thought. And as time runs out, I realize it, in fact, was not Lenina Road that we were on, but the side road, like one major road to the west, which costs me 261 points, which is not a massive deal. Slightly annoying, but we'll see. Probably not the main concern. We move over to Montenegro, and that is, well, probably one of my least favorite countries to play in GeoGuessr, and this is why. There is no information here anyway, so I'm just moving along. It also, the country looks, it's not like the whole country looks the same. There's definitely differences, but it's pretty difficult to make out significant differences where you can be like, okay, this is definitely this specific area, or this is definitely this specific other area. It's mostly like, okay, this is rather mountainous, so we're not really in the far northwest or somewhere where it's rather flat. We're not, in the southeast. We're not around Podgorica. You can exclude a couple of areas mostly, but you can't really pinpoint a singular area from what I know in Montenegro. Obviously, if you live there, I assume, you can go, okay, yeah, I've driven on this road 10,000 times. I know where we are. And here I find a map, which at least tells me, okay, we're probably somewhere near the coast. Doesn't necessarily tell me where exactly. It tells me which road, but at least I think it tells me which road. There's one road that's marked in red, which to me would suggest that's probably the one we're on. And so I continue onwards. Doesn't really tell me much. And there I see the coast, which is quite helpful because, that narrows it down a lot. I don't have to go inland very much. So I'm now checking, okay, the road south here, pretty much close to the coast all the time. And I'd had to travel quite a bit to get to it. So not the most likely, but at the same time, I also still feel like I'm not quite confident enough to make a guess. And oh, would you look at that? Welcome to the municipality of Budva, which is right big on my screen, just takes me a long time to find. Yes, move upwards. Not sure why I'm clicking here. Oh yeah, I'm comparing the map at this point. It looks pretty much the same, but up here is where it actually is. There is Budva. And at this point, though, it's just essentially saying we're entering the Budva municipality somewhere. And I immediately come to this spot. And I've only got 15 seconds here, so I don't really have much I can specify here or much I can go into. So all I'm doing is I'm looking at, okay, I've got a bit of a curve here. Don't know what that bug in the map was there. And yeah, that's about it. And it's not the right road. Yeah. Obviously, if I kept in mind all of the information I had in that round, which specifically was that I traveled quite westerly and not sort of northwest, I could have maybe realized that it wasn't the right road, but time was so short that I just kind of had to go with it, with kind of the first thing that I found. And I think I'd also kind of underestimated how far I had traveled to get to the coast. And yeah, therefore losing a few points here, 1,500 for like 4 kilometers. That's another problematic part about Montenegro. It's a tiny country compared to something like Kyrgyzstan. So in Kyrgyzstan, if you're like 3 kilometers off, you're maybe going to drop 200 points. In Montenegro, 1,500 down. And this is not the location I would have liked to see for round 2, because this is random, nondescript valley towns in Montenegro's countryside. Could be anywhere, really. And the problem with those as well is that it's pretty much impossible to find any information because there just isn't any. Like, there's these signs, which I think might be town signs, I'm not even sure, but looking for a town of that size in Montenegro, even if you know the exact area, like if you've got like a 20 kilometer radius, it's almost impossible because you have to zoom in like down to where you can see maybe a 200 meter radius of, road for the names of the towns to even show up. Like you have to zoom all the way in. And that's just not feasible to try and find a town, even if you know the general area, which I of course do not, because, yeah, you can see it looks like any other place. So my hope here is that I can somehow get to any kind of sign that tells me which area I'm in, at least. Like, no hope of pinpointing it anyway at this point. Like, 45 seconds to go. Even if there was a sign right there which would have told me everything, like you are here, it's not happening. So all I'm hoping for is a sign that's like, hey, you're in this municipality. Maybe that would already be nice. Do such signs exist anywhere here? Well, you can probably already guess. No, they don't. Of course they don't. Could have probably traveled for another 20 minutes and I wouldn't have found anything. Well, maybe in 20 minutes I would have. So I'm just going, what are some like flatter areas that do still have mountains somewhere in the distance? So the northwest is a good, general location. But heading down there to the south, which I think isn't a great idea because that's rather mountainous. And yep, right in the north, 59 kilometers, 43 points. That's, yeah. So round 3, which we start right next to the big lake. And yeah, it can be very difficult to tell for me how far away we are from the coastline in a situation like this. Like looking at this, I'd hazard a guess it's about 2 kilometers, maybe at most, to sort of the water. And how far is that on the map? I don't know. So I'm heading over and it turns south suddenly and it looks like there's a bit of a U-turn coming up. Not quite a U, but Actually, it is pretty much a U, yeah. So I'm headed there, and at this point, I'm like, okay, that's some kind of information. I can look for that, I think. And well, I'm checking all of those smaller roads. I'm not sure they're even covered, but that's what I think in my mind 2 kilometers will be like. None of them run alongside the lake though. So I'm like, this does, but it doesn't really look like we're here. It doesn't really look like the lake would look like that where around the north as well. Like it's a fairly open area of the lake at this point. There is a small island there to the east that might be possible to spot, but I'm not sure it is. So I continue to check the road, now focusing on sort of the P16. And that looks like a bit of a U-turn, but again, there's no city here, so it seems unlikely. And so in the end, I kind of put it down to this area, and there is an island out there to the east, which I'm not going to lie, at this point I did not focus on at all, but I saw that town down there that you can see here. So that was kind of the only place. At this point, I do check the Bay of Kotor for a second, even though, it's a lot flatter there generally. It does still have mountains, of course. It's Montenegro. It's got mountains everywhere. But especially these parts I'm checking right now, they're completely flat here too. And the road is directly on the bay. So, well, it's not actually that it's flat. It's just that the road is right next to the water. So, of course, you're level with it. The mountains start afterwards. And at this point, I'm just checking other lakes because honestly, I have no idea how big this lake is from what I can see. So I have checked the 2 other lakes in Montenegro at this point. So probably are where I've placed it. And I just was like, well, I can't see the U-turn anywhere. So just going to put it there, and pretty close. Yeah, the U-turn just does not. Oh, there it is. Yeah, now I see it. It doesn't really look like I imagined it would. But yeah, again, 300 points dropped for 800 meters is kind of ridiculous, but it is what it is. And here is the town of Spus. I don't know. Spush? I've no idea. Can't tell you. But it has a very typical look of sort of outskirts of Podgorets, and I spotted very quickly. And at this point, though, I'm like, okay, this is the town entrance sign that I didn't spot the first time around. And the town is up there, which, road doesn't really fit there, and there's a little road going off to the south, as well as one off to the north where I start. So it should be kind of like a 4-way intersection. And this is a 4-way intersection, but it does not fit quite obviously because the road to the north is much smaller than what is shown here. It can't be that, but at the same time, there is no other 4-way intersection. I mean, there's that one to the east there, but that's almost too far away and not populated enough. So I'm checking to the north, I'm checking to the south, and there isn't really anything there. So I decide, okay, you know what? I'm going to go and continue southeast, and I'm going to try to find something else. There's a big building there. Maybe that has something. No. Then there's an idea, which is here for some reason. That's quite clearly not it, because road direction-wise makes no sense, so it can't be there. And there's also no supermarket like that anywhere else here. So there's one here, but it also can't be it because there's no side roads anywhere. And it just all makes no sense. Checking up here, but that's already way too far away from the town. So I'm like, well, whatever, let's continue. And there's the Echo petrol station, which is in fact here. So at this point, I'm like, okay, that is one thing. The gas stations is the one thing you can trust as a GeoGuessr player, which puts me here, exactly where I've put it, which just means that the road to the north just isn't on the map. I'm going to go quickly to the north to confirm that there is in fact, and there is a 4-way intersection here, so we have to be here, and we are. Lost 12 points for being 4 meters too far off. But yeah, strange round. Either way, we have one more to go. And I checked to go up here. I decided to do that for 2 reasons. Usually, you wouldn't do that. I don't think a lot of players would. But there's 2 possible things I would like to see from this. Thing A is it gives me a great overview over the city. So I can get a grasp of what is the size of it. And if it's a big city, I can pretty much exclude everything that isn't Podgorica or Nikšić. And it definitely is a big city. That helps. The other idea was you can see this tower there up to the north, which I initially thought maybe if there's nothing else, I could get to that and grab some information. I figured with already the knowledge that it's probably Podgorica, at most it's Nikšić, if not that. I don't think I need the tower. Whatever it is, it's probably going to be a POI, and it won't provide any useful information for me that I couldn't kind of grasp from context anyway. And here we found a sign that tells me exactly where we are. We are in Podgorica, in the district of Zabielo, and it even tells me the road name, which I don't necessarily need because I'm now looking at the road direction, and there's not a lot that fits here in this district, but it confirms that it is indeed that road. I go and see it's the Dajbabska Gora Tower, I think that's what it was called. Just check it's the right turn off here, and 22 meters. And that was Montenegro. Pretty decent, I'd say. Like round 2 is a bit unfortunate, but there's nothing I could have done about that. And yeah, now we go into Indonesia, which is the 3rd seed of this duel. And I did look at a few things in Indonesia. I know the phone area code system, and there's actually another kind of system that is helpful. I'm trying to see here if there's anything useful in that. It says Palu Gelembang, which I think is the town, but I've of course got no idea where it is. It sounded somewhat familiar, but yeah, probably not worth it to check. There's actually also a numbering system on the Pertamina gas stations, where you can use those numbers as well to help cross-reference and you know, either or would tell you the rough area where you are. So at this point, I'm just trying to find either a telephone number somewhere. I take, to be honest, a province or something like that, but yeah, it's not really that likely to find any good information in Indonesia that goes beyond, you know, hey, you're in this town, which is not massively helpful if you don't know every single town in Indonesia. And yeah, I'm just trying to go through. You kind of also have to make a bit of a compromise in how many signs are actually going to check and which ones, because you can look at every single sign, but it's going to cost you a lot of time and it might not be worth it. Here it's just a church or something like that, the opening hours, or mess, I think it's mess hours, which isn't great information. I've got a minute left here. And yeah, at this point, I've got no idea where we are. I've already kind of had it in my mind where I'm like, if I can't find anything, I'm going to guess somewhere in Java. And there is a sign there. Again, it says a small town name on it, but I figured it's not worth my time to try and see if I can get a better look at it. Then it turns out this road just kind of leads into the middle of absolutely nowhere. So I just turn around and see like, okay, maybe this road has something, and well, it's not looking very promising, is it? So I'm just like, well, that's not a good start to Indonesia, is it? There are some houses around here, but it's just at this point it's pointless. I'm curious on whether that sort of electrical box, I think it is on the left there, would have some kind of information. At this point, I'm trying to look for Gelembang somewhere if I can maybe spot it. I don't know, but yeah, time's running out. And apparently somewhere in the outskirts of Medan, just I found nothing that would even point in that direction, which is great. So that's a grand total of 7 points to start Indonesia off. And just don't worry about it. Get into the next round. Let's see if we can find something better here. I don't want to say it's urban, but there are houses on the side of the road, a few of them. There isn't really much, I think. By the way, 8 is a mobile phone number, so massively unhelpful. There isn't really much beyond just phone numbers and codes that I know would help me in Indonesia. Like landscape wise, it all looks the same to me. Would be no help at all. So I'm just basically going around looking for numbers or locations, provinces ideally. And here it says Mahasiswa Baru, and I've got Kota Baru in my head, which is, I realize, a city in Malaysia, not in Indonesia. So not particularly helpful. I put a checkpoint there, decided, okay, let's try the other way. I'm getting turned around here a lot when clicking, which is not great, but got to deal with it. Let's see, maybe there's some more mobile phone numbers. Brilliantly helpful. There's something on that house to the right over there, which also could have been interesting. At this point, I'm checking for if there's a Baru somewhere in Indonesia too. Doesn't really look like it. Nothing that stands out, at least. There is something here. Most specifically, there's a phone number here, and it's a 5, which is Borneo. It takes me a bit to figure that out. There we go. And there is something called Banjarbaru. So I figure, I mean, it's not like I've got anything else. Might as well have it there for now. I've only got 30 seconds anyway. We're apparently in Anjongan, but I've obviously got no idea where that is, beyond just in Borneo somewhere. Don't really have any province there, so I'm just like looking around a bit, last 10 seconds, and then I see that little sign over there and looking like maybe that has something, but just no time left really. And of course, in the far northwest, which means even the right island gets me a total of 307 points. So we're starting off magnificently here in Indonesia. All right. Round 3. This is now actually urban. And phone code 4 means we're on Sulawesi. And the sign makes me believe we are in a city called Takala, which, isn't a big city in Sulawesi. So at this point, I'm like, I want some confirmation for that. Maybe something that tells me where we are more closely. There is one Pertamina station. You can see the number there at the top. It was 749 something. The 7 there also just confirms we're in Sulawesi. Not anything beyond that though. So at this point, not super helpful. But if I hadn't seen the phone number, then that would have told me where we were. More mentions of Takala. So at this point, I'm pretty sure that's probably where we are. But again, it's nothing I've ever heard, so seems quite unlikely that I'd find it somewhere. Which at this point is kind of confusing me a bit, because, there's more mentions of it here. Because I should know, like, every bigger city on Sulawesi, because there's not many. There's like 4. So I'm checking, like, is there a Takala somewhere? And this looks like a big city. Not like city center of a big city, but it looks like it would be very populated around here. There's even more mentions. Kabupaten Takala is, I think, what I see here for the first time, which now absolutely confirms it is in fact the city name. But yeah, at this point, I think my mindset is just, I need to figure out if it's sort of a suburb of Makassar, if it's a suburb, or if it's a suburb of one of the two major cities in sort of the northeast. I don't 100% remember their names right now, so I'm going to wait until I go onto the map again. Again, Takala Regency, Bitung and Manado. Yep. And basically, I've committed at this point. I'm either there or I'm near Makassar. It's way too big and way too urban for me to be anything else. But I'm not sure which of the two it is. So I'm trying to look around, seeing if I can find it somewhere. But at that point, for a second there, I even doubted my number knowledge of like area codes and stuff like that. But no, that's obviously right. So at this point, I'm just like, yeah, just keep me somewhere in Makassar. And it was kind of a lot more rural than I thought, but yeah, still a decent number of points at least compared to the first two rounds. Round 4, Kabupaten Sumbawa. Not very helpful at the moment, but maybe this time we'll actually find something that tells us where we are. Plampang again. Similarly to Sumbawa, it's just some town somewhere. So I kind of just continue going east here. It doesn't look like the most urban area. It kind of looks like maybe it could stop any second. The houses are just gonna disappear and there's no more houses. I keep going. And it does look like there's a couple houses again. Maybe the city doesn't quite end yet. Maybe there's something on that. Nope, absolutely not. So I decided to turn around and try the other direction. Because we did kind of start in a more populated area. This sign specifically mentions, the two cities that I actually realized are Cilegon and Denpasar. I now know it also says Jakarta on it, which I didn't actually see, but that's not massively helpful because that essentially was just a lot of different cities in Indonesia in vastly different locations. So not sure that could provide any useful information to me. I guess that's some political ads, I'm not sure though. And we're getting a little more urban here. With a minute left to go. Looks like there's a lot more signs here as well. But is there anything that actually helps me? Bus. Nothing great. Oh, what about this? I spotted there. Something saying Barat, and as it turns out, it's Nusa Tenggara Barat. Barat meaning west. And there's Sumbawa. And there's Plampang. And there's Sumbawa Besar. And what I think at this stage is that we are in Sumbawa. What I do not realize is that we aren't. We are in Plampang. Which is a bit unfortunate because those two are quite, I realize at this point, like the road here doesn't match anywhere. And yeah, that's 50 kilometers. And yeah, it's about 800 points lost there, which is unfortunate. But we do have one more round to go. And it looks very rural at the start, but as we quickly realize by going up this road, it isn't really at all. It's very urban. And I spot there, okay, that looks like an address. Let me see if I can read it. And we are in Jawa Tengah, so central Java. And we are in Boyolali city. So I can just take a look and see if I can find that. This one just also confirms it. And it is right there. And it also it mentions the street as well, Jalan Pandanaran, I think. And I kind of look, okay, that's probably the main road then. It is. And the last thing I need to do is check the name of this restaurant, Papa Cookies. And zoom in, and it's right there. I immediately picked the right intersection to start with. So we go back, and well, I mean, there's a little curve coming up here. Turn, probably doesn't really matter too much. 13 meters. There we go. That is it. The end of the video as well. Am I just going to leave you with a black screen here? Probably not. Actually, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to wait with this until he's played, and then I'm going to put up kind of like an overview of what has happened in the game right over these last few things. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Thanks for doing so, and I'll see you guys again next time. Till then, bye.